Hi, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 176, and I'm Lisa, your host, also known as Fiber Nymph on Ravelry, Plurk, and Instagram. Today is Thursday, October 22nd. My days are totally screwed up right now after having been away for a week. Do you ever get that way? You go away on vacation or on a trip or whatever, and then you come back and it's like your real life has completely lost a week because you were somewhere else, removed from everything in normal everyday life. That's how I'm feeling right now. So I'm still in my re-entry zone from Maine, which I'm going to talk about at length towards the end of the podcast. I will do a whole recap of Highlands on the fly and my trip in general. But for right now, let's just get started with the normal stuff, shall we? Thank you for being here, by the way. This might be a little bit different, like not a completely normal episode, just because I don't have a lot of knitting to talk about. So if this is your first time watching, maybe watch one of the more recent past episodes or tune in next time. It should be a little bit more normal, but we'll just go with what we've got here today. So I will say hello to a couple people, though, who have introduced themselves on the 90% Knitting board. There was Karen, who is from Washington. And Karen is the hostess of the Simply Stashless podcast. If you've never watched that, please check her out. I've got to say, of all the podcasts I watch, there's a few that just always make me smile, and she's one of them because she is just so delightfully cheerful and happy. You can't not watch her. You can't watch her and not smile, because she's just got such a lovely demeanor. So anyway, hi Karen. And also Terry, who is from Maine. But I do not believe she was not at the retreat, but she did say hello on the 90% Knitting board. So hi. Okay, let's get into the main content. Not main, M-A-I-N-E. The normal content, as much as it's ever normal. You know what? I was cold and now I'm going to take this off because I'm getting warm. This is just I've been getting so much use out of this shawl. Remember this? I knit this not long ago. It's just that scrappy, elongated, triangular garter stitch shawl that I made. So squishy, so warm. I've been wearing it a ton. I'm getting bunches of use out of it. So anyway, so now I will readjust myself because I'm suddenly really warm. Okay. Here we go. Like I said, not a whole lot of knitting has happened since the last time I recorded back at the beginning of the month. Between trying to do all the dyeing to get ready to go to Highlands on the fly, and then also getting a wholesale order finished and ready to send out before I left. And then my daughter surprised me by coming home for Columbus Day weekend, totally unannounced, which was a wonderful, happy surprise. But it was like, yay, I'm so happy to see you. Oh my gosh, I was really planning to get a lot done this weekend. It actually worked out though, because she's currently unemployed in Greenland, no, in Charlotte at school. And she was more than willing to help out with yarn related tasks. So she earned a few extra bucks that way while she was home. But yeah, oh my gosh. I had no idea she was coming home, and I guess maybe if I would have been paying attention and thinking, I might have had a clue that she was planning something, because apparently she did ask me a couple times, so what are you doing Columbus Day weekend? And I thought that was kind of weird because it's not like a huge holiday that I celebrate with any great pomp and circumstance. And I told her, I'll just mostly be working because I've got the retreat coming up and the wholesale order and everything. And she's like, oh, okay. And I mean, I knew she wouldn't have class that Monday, but it didn't really register. And so I went to bed that Thursday night, and Christopher came in at 1 in the morning and woke me up out of a dead sleep. And he's like, Mom, you have to see something. And I'm like, you know, when your kid wakes you up, anybody wakes you up in the middle of the night when you're sound asleep and says something like that, you're like, what? Is the house on fire? Is the dog dead? Like, what happened? Has something exploded? And so I follow him down the hall, and he's like, it's okay, relax. And I walk out, and there she is standing in the living room. And, you know, my brain is still fuzzy because I'm still mostly asleep, so I'm trying to compute. Like, Emma's here. She should be in Charlotte, but she's here. And so she runs over at me and says, surprise. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, how did you get here? And she's like, Alyssa drove me. And so then I start looking around, looking for her one roommate. who lives up in this area. I'm like, well, where is she? She's like, well, Mom, she went to her house. It's like, oh, okay. So I guess they had just taken off after classes that day. And I said, was this like a spur of the moment thing? She's like, oh my gosh, no, we've been planning this since June. I'm like, okay. I love it whenever my kids surprise me with things like this. It just gives me a heart attack. And then, you know, I have to not think about the fact that had I known she was going to be driving all that time with her friend, that like I would have been, you know, concerned and about her safety and everything. So it was probably better that I didn't know and just got to wake up to a really fun surprise in the middle of the night. And yeah, so anyway, all that to say is I just didn't have a whole lot of knitting time. See, we circle back around to the actual topic here. But it's fine. I did work a little bit on both of the socks I have going right now, the zombie waffle socks and the sock blank sock with the sock blank from Knitty and Color. I maybe put an inch on each of those while I was at the retreat, but it's not nearly enough to show you because you won't see much of a difference, so I didn't bother to bring them in to show you. The one thing I did work on was the sweater, the pullover, the Slinky Ribs pullover, which I modeled for you last time, and pretty much everyone who commented on it to me after that was like, yeah, that looks horrible, and I totally agree. So I did end up ripping it out. Let's see. Get it up here. Where's the, okay. Is the front? Yes, this is the front. So I did rip out the whole stockinette section, and I ripped it back up to, you know, where that started, up about here. And I just started working downward in the ribbing, and that's how I'm going to finish it. Okay, so here's my marker for how far back I ripped it. So obviously I did not get a whole lot more knit on it. I am doing decreases though. I've done 3 sets of decreases so far, just to try to give myself some waist shaping since it was so loose. I'm not good at doing decreases in ribbing that don't look wonky. I'm really hoping that nobody's going to look close enough at this to see just how bizarre my decreases look. This side doesn't look so bad. The other side, though, I think, yeah, it's really weird. I have no idea what I did, but I'm thinking if anybody's getting that close to my sides to really, really pay attention to it, they're too close, so I'm not going to worry about them. I've got a long ways to go on this. There was absolutely no way it was going to get done before I went away. This, again, is the Slinky Ribs pullover by somebody, Wendy Bernard, from the Custom Knits book. And I'm using Mirasol Hacho in colorway 304 on US 6s. At this point, you know, it's getting chilly enough that, and that's the other thing, it was cold enough in Maine that I don't know that I really would have worn a short sleeve sweater. So it really didn't matter that I didn't get it done before I went to the retreat. And it's actually getting chilly enough here now that, you know, in the evenings or whatever, that I don't know that a short sleeved sweater is necessarily something I'm going to be getting a whole lot of wear out of from this point on. I mean, the days are still getting up into the 60s, but that's almost too warm to wear a DK weight sweater comfortably for me, especially if I'm out running around. So I have the feeling at this point, this sweater is probably going to hibernate for a while. Maybe not officially hibernate. It'll remain an active project in my projects on Ravelry, but it's going to languish for a while. Just because I would rather start working on one of the cardigans that I have yarn for, because those will be warmer and those will definitely be things, if I start now, I have a chance of possibly finishing one of them before the end of winter and can wear it. So that would be nice. I have the feeling what will happen is I'm going to let this Slinky Ribs thing just sit and languish for a while until one day I will suddenly get a bug up my butt and decide I need to finish it, and I will pull it out and I will just knit till it's done, and it'll be good and life will be fine and all that, and the sweater will be done. But until that point, it's going to stay in the bag and it's just going to hang out because I'm not feeling any compulsion to get it done fast. New mug from my trip. I love this mug. It's so cute. Okay, so what else? I do have a finished object that I started and finished while I was at the retreat. I don't have it to show you because it was a gift and I've already gifted it to someone. It was a bank head hat, which I made out of this yarn. That's actually not too bad of a representation. This is Cascade 220 that I had in my stash. I totally forgot I even had it. I had 4 skeins. Emma needed some yarn to take with her back to school for a project that she wanted to do. And so we were going through my yarn stash and she saw this and she pulled that out and she's like, oh, I'll take that. And I thought, you know what, that's a really nice red. I totally forgot I had it. It's definitely, back here you can see it more. It's like a bluer red than a more orange red that it looks when it's close up. I thought, you know what, I'm going to pull that out and I'm going to make a hat because I needed to make a hat for somebody. Well, I wanted to make a hat for somebody anyway. So I took it with me and it knit up really nice. I love Cascade 220. It's a really nice yarn. So it took about half a ball, half a skein, so like about 110 yards. I'd never knit a bank head hat before, but it's a really easy hat. It looks nice. I would not wear it just because it's a tight, you know, it's a fitted knit cap. I do have a picture of it. I took a picture of it before I gave it away, so I will put the picture in here. So there you can see it. It's a ribbed hat essentially. But yeah, I liked it, and I think since I do have enough of this yarn, I'd want to make something for myself out of it. So now I have like 2.5 skeins of this left. I don't know what I will make for myself. I may make myself a hat, but it'll definitely not be a bank head hat. I may make myself, I can't remember what that one hat is. I know, that helps, right? What's that one hat? I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of got like a honeycomb. The Fat Squirrel, she did it a while back. And I don't remember what yarn she used, but it really looked nice. I can't remember, though, if that was a tight-fitting hat or if it was a little slouchy. If it's not slouchy, I won't make it for myself because I need slouch in my hats. Otherwise, I just look plastered with a hat. So I don't know, but I really, really love this yarn, and I'm so glad I found it in my stash. So anyway, that's my one and only finished object. And that's really it. That's all the knitting I did. I did not work on anything else. No Afghan squares. Nothing. That's all I got. No spinning. I did not take my spinning wheel with me to Maine. I originally planned to, and then my car was so full that I was actually putting like my luggage and smaller bags in my front seat, which is normally where I would strap in my sidekick. So no spinning, and I was going to throw in a drop spindle at the last minute just in case I felt like spinning, and I totally forgot to, so I did no spinning whatsoever, which was fine, because like I said, I just didn't even knit that much, and that's unusual for me, because usually when I go to retreats, like when I'm sitting around and chatting and stuff, I knit, you know, even if it is just something simple like a sock, I usually knit, but for whatever reason, I know I knit, I just feel like I didn't knit a lot, so whatever, I had a great time regardless, it doesn't really matter. So anyway, that's it for things to show you that I've worked on. Let's talk about the alphabet cow. One last time. Sorry, my throat is really tickly and scratchy because I was singing a lot on my drive home. It's one of the things I do to stay awake. And so I know this was a couple days ago, but my throat's still funky because I'm singing really loudly. So anyway, the alphabet cow, it is completely over, and the only thing left to do now is to announce the grand prize winner. I closed that thread, the verification thread for that, just right before I started recording, so you had every last moment, and actually nobody had posted in it for quite a while, so I assume everybody that wanted to be entered in that has done so. There were 26 entries. And so I did a random number generator for numbers 2 through 27 because the first post was mine. And the winner was number 4. And I took a screenshot of it so I can at least show it to you even though I'm not doing it live. So here's number 4 was the winner. And number 4 was Penny Gale. So congratulations, Penny Gale. I'm not sure if your first name is actually Penny or Gale or I don't know, because it doesn't say on Ravelry, but either way, congratulations. You have won a $100 gift certificate to my shop, my Fiber Nymph Dye Works shop on Big Cartel. So please PM me as soon as you see this, and I will get your gift certificate information to you, and you can use that whenever you're ready. So anyway, I just want to take a minute and thank everyone who participated in the alphabet cow. This, even though it was crazy and like the guidelines and things that I ended up doing were so whack, it was fun. I really had a good time. And as I was going through and like verifying the winner, like I had to scroll through all of the pictures and everything. There's some really cool projects out there. So, you know, if you're looking for something to do and have some downtime, go through those threads, you know, the finished object threads, because there's some really neat projects that people did for that. But I just always appreciate it whenever you guys knit along or crochet along or whatever you do whenever you're, you know, doing these knit alongs that we have. So thank you to everybody who took part. This was a really fun one, and I hope you all had a good time too. It sounds like you did. So let's jump now to the next along that we're going to have, and this is going to be the spin along. And I started talking about that a little bit last time. I've sort of tweaked the name of it because I was calling it the natural wool spin along, I think originally. I've changed the name to Natural Colors Fiber Spin Along instead. Because basically any fiber that you're going to be spinning is going to be a natural fiber, and we're talking here more about color. Basically, undyed fiber is what this spin along is about, so that we can enjoy and celebrate the natural colors that fibers come in, because they're amazing. And that was something I really got to enjoy at this retreat too, and I'll talk about that later. But anyway, just to give you a rundown, I have not started the thread yet about the spin along. I'll do that later today, but just to give you the general guidelines. It's going to begin on November 15th, which I believe is a Sunday. Yes, it is a Sunday. So it's going to start November 15th and run through the end of the year, so December 31st. All right, the general guidelines. You can spin any fiber you want. It can be animal fiber, it can be plant fiber, whatever floats your boat. Blends are perfectly fine if there's blends with nylon in them or whatever. I don't care about that, as long as, you know, you've got some natural fiber happening. That's the key there. And the only qualification for that fiber, whatever it is it needs to be in its natural color, as it appears in nature, not dyed in any way. Some fibers may be bleached. That I don't care. If you want to use a fiber that's sort of been bleached, because some you don't even know sometimes, and like superwash fibers often look a little different because of the chemical processing that they go through. So that's fine. It just needs to not have been dyed another color. Okay. The minimum quantity of fiber to spin to qualify for a prize in this spin along will be 4 ounces. You can spin more if you want, but you need to at least spin 4 ounces. Any spinning method is fine. You can spin with a wheel, you can spin with a drop spindle, you can use an e-spinner, whatever you want to do. That matters not to me. You can ply your fiber, like once you spin your singles, if you want to ply them, that's your choice. You can do any plying you want, or you can just leave them as singles. Since yardage is not going to be a qualifying element here, it doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. I will say though, just sort of as a heads up, that since this is running through the end of the year, my plan is in January and February, as a follow-up to the spin along, is to host a hand spun yarn knit along. Now, that does not necessarily mean that whatever you spin in the spin along you have to use for the knit along. It can be some other hand spun of yours or someone else's. It doesn't matter. So if you're not a spinner and you don't spin hands, you know, if you're not a spinner, you don't have any hand spun that you've made yourself. But if you buy someone else's, or if you have a friend who spins and gives you their yarn, that's nice. That's a nice friend. You can use that. So the January and February end of this, which isn't really going to be connected, but it's just sort of related loosely, will be, you know, a knit along using hand spun yarn. So if you're going to do that and you want to use what you've spun in the spin along part, you may want to spin along and get it to the point that you're going to be able to knit with it. So if you don't typically knit with hand spun singles, then you're probably going to want to do the plying as well. But it's not required, is what I'm getting at here. It does not have to be required, even though, or it does not have to be plied, even though you may end up plying it at some point before you knit with it. For the sake of the spin along, it's just spinning the fiber. Although, you know, once you get done, it usually looks way cooler once it's plied too. So that part's up to you. The plying is not required, just the spinning of the singles. See, I said I was going to keep the next along simpler. I feel like I'm just babbling and making this more complicated right off the bat. I also mentioned to you that I was going to be offering Shetland fiber spinning kits in 5 natural colors. I got that in right before I left on the trip, and so I've put some together just to show you. Now, these are in the bag already, so it's a little bit difficult to see the actual colors, but there are, these will contain 2 ounces of each of these 5 colors. So starting at the bottom, we've got, well, let's start at the top. So the lightest one is ecru. The next one is fawn. The next one is morit. The next one is gray. And the last one is black. So I will try to take a picture of these and post it somewhere in the thread so you can see them a little bit better than you can see them in this bag. But here's the deal with these. I have enough for about 24-ish of these spinning sets. I'm definitely going to keep at least one for me. I'm going to give one away, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. But I am going to put these, you guys are getting first dibs. Okay, basically anybody who wants to use this fiber for the spin along has first dibs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a thread in the 90% knitting group. If you would like to claim one of these sets, they are $28 a piece. That's for 10 ounces of fiber, okay, of the Shetland. If you would like to call dibs on one of those that are available, please just post in that thread. And what I will do is I will put a reserved listing up in my shop with your RAV name on it. And I will let you know that it's there. And you can go to the shop and you can order the spinning kit of the Shetland, and I will ship it to you. I can't remember how many I have. I know I have a total of enough to do 24, but sometimes when you're dividing fiber up, if you go over a little bit, you end up with fewer. So I'm going to say I've probably got about 20 available for sure. So that's going to be the limit on these, and I won't have any more. This is it. I probably will not order any more of this fiber because I won't be able to get it in time for the spin along anyway. So if you're interested, again, just post in the thread that I have up for the spinning kits. I will arrange the reserved listing for you. You can purchase it from there at your convenience. I will say though, any orders that have not been actually finalized by November 8th, I'm going to delete them out of the shop, and those spinning kits will just go into my shop at large once I list them in there. So you might be able to still get one, you might not. So if you have any questions about any of this, just post in the group or PM me or whatever. And yes, you can claim more than one if you'd like to, but I'm going to limit it to 2 per person. And again, I'm asking that you please only order this right at this point if you're going to use it for the spin along. Now, I know sometimes things happen and you don't end up being able to finish a spin along or whatever. I get that, but I would really prefer that you only order this at this point if you intend to use it for the spin along. If they go well and I don't have a bunch of leftovers, I can still order more of the fiber. It just won't be here in time for the beginning of the spin along. So if you want one to be able to play with some other time, I'm happy to accommodate that. I'm just mainly concerned with the spin along right now. All right, so now related to that, I am going to do a drawing for one of these fiber kits. It's not really a kit, it's 2 ounces of 5 different colors of Shetland. So it's sort of a set, not a kit. Anyway, I'm going to put up another thread. I know I'm going to be starting a lot of threads this episode for you to enter if you'd like to win one of these. And I will be, let's see, how will I do this? Because if you want to buy one and then you end up winning it, well, you know what? If you enter the drawing and you win it, but you've already purchased one, I'll just refund you your purchase price and the shipping and everything. How's that? That'll make it easy. That way you can still order it if you definitely want to get it, but if you actually happen to win it, you won't be out any money. How's that? I will go ahead and do the drawing for this the next time I record. So probably in like a week, week and a half, I'll do the drawing for this. So this drawing won't be up very long, but I just want to make sure I have time to ship it to you so you can use it for the spin along. And again, please only enter the drawing for this if you're planning to want to use it for the spin along. Okay, my goodness, that was a lot of talking. Again, I will put all of that information up in a thread on the 90% knitting board. So I am looking forward to this. I'm not sure what I'm going to spin. I'm not sure if I'm going to spin the Shetland, or I got some cool stuff when I was away too, so I don't know. Plus I've got like bins over here in the back full of natural colored wools that need to have some attention. So okay, let's see, let's move on. The next thing, new things. I had one new thing come in right before I left for the retreat, and that was some yarn from Woolenvine Yarns. I caught one of her updates, which hardly ever happens, but I was actually out in the kitchen dyeing one day, and I was watching her podcast, and she was talking about her next update, which happened to be happening at exactly like 5 minutes from the time that I was watching it, because she recorded Thursday and I was watching it Friday, and her update was Friday at 2, and it was like 1:55, and I'm like, yay! So I ran in here and I got on the computer, and I managed to grab a skein of her blitzed base, and this is a new colorway for her. It's called Forage, and it's just so pretty. It's got all these really lovely autumnal colors in it. I just, yummy. It was so nice. So I was so happy to be able to grab that. So thank you, Kristen. Your yarns are always so gorgeous. I've also been the happy recipient of a few patterns that have been gifted to me by their designers. And all of these designers have also been kind enough to offer a free copy to one of you all. So let me go through these in the order in which I received them. And the first one is the Azteca shawl, and this is by Debbie Hostis, whose name on Ravelry is Deb's Destiny. This is a really pretty triangular shawl. It's got so many unique visual elements to it. Like I love this row of like eyelets. I can't get my finger to go in the right direction this way, but I love that eyelet. I love the toothed border, and I love that it's kind of an elongated triangle, because you know I love that kind of shaped shawl. It says this crescent, well, okay, she's calling it crescent. This crescent shaped shawl is created by knitting the bottom edges of the shawl first, then knitting from the point to the top. That's a really cool construction. It's a rhythmic knit and easy to accomplish. It is named for the Aztec colors of the yarn, so obviously if you use something other than that, it won't look Aztec-y, but hers definitely does. I love those colors. And you know, you can mix in your matching yarns. You can do it all in one yarn. That's what she said. You can choose as many or as few colors as you like. And she said the pattern was inspired by Debbie Lake's Labor Day shawl. So that is the first pattern that I will be putting a thread up for. And you can enter to win a copy courtesy of Debbie. So thank you very much, Debbie. The second one is a shawl by, oh, and Debbie is half of the, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name, Never Cast Off podcast. If you've ever watched that, she's one of the hosts of that. So check out her podcast too. I know I've mentioned it before. Okay, the second pattern I have is by Jennifer Lassonde, who she is the host of the Down Cellar Studio podcast, which is an audio podcast. And her new shawl is called View from the Charles. Now, she said that it's written with gradient colored yarns in mind, which I think is really cool because it's knit in 2 different directions, if you can see that. And I think that would be so interesting. I mean, it is interesting the way she's got it knit, but I'm just saying it would be so interesting to see how different gradients work out with that. The pattern comes in both a DK weight and a fingering weight version, so you can take your pick. Let's see. It says, as a native of the Boston area, I grew up surrounded by the ocean, rivers, and lakes, so common in the New England landscape. During my childhood, I would come into Boston with my family for the 4th of July. We would sit along the Charles River watching the sailboats and waiting for the fireworks display. As an adult, I work in downtown Boston, where, from my desk, I have a view of the Charles that is the envy of many who toil in windowless offices. I'll bet. When I need to clear my head, I take a deep breath and enjoy the sight of the sailboats jaunting their way through my beloved city. This triangular shawl mimics the shape of those sailboats. sailboat sails. Like my view, it's filled with texture and progressive colors and is a great project for gradient yarn or even partial skein leftovers too beautiful to toss. This shawl is worked from the bottom up on the right side and becomes larger with increases, though the rows never get too long. When the right side is complete, the stitches along the straight edge of the triangle are picked up, and the left side is worked in easy garter stitch short rows. No wraps to pick up here. The design features an optional keyhole, and this is especially helpful for the smaller DK weight size, making it easy to keep the shawl in place without the need for a shawl pin. So that's the description. I just wanted to read it to you so you had an idea what it's all about. But you can check out the pattern page on Ravelry too. So I will be putting up a thread for this one as well that you can enter to win a copy courtesy of Jen. So thank you so much, Jen. Lastly, this one just came in today. This is the Esther Bell shawl by Emily Estrada. And Emily is Chain of Fools on Ravelry, and she hosts the Fibertown podcast, which is another one of my favorites. And this, here, I'll put it a little closer. This is a really cool, uniquely designed shawl. And let me see if I can find the description. The Esther Bell shawl is named after my great-grandmother, a sassy, practical, and compassionate woman who was always stylish. The circular motif employs pie shawl shaping, then branches out on either side as wings that stay easily on your shoulders. Choose a monochromatic look or opt for a coordinating edge color. Esther Bell is knit in 4 sections, and the yarn is broken only once. Techniques to keep your interest include incorporated I-cord, both circular and flat knitting, a feather and fan edging, the pinhole cast on, and the Russian bind off. There's a whole lot going on with Esther Bell, and it sounds like perhaps there was a whole lot going on with Esther Bell in her life too, which is pretty cool. So anyway, Emily has also offered a copy of this pattern to one of our viewers, so I will also be starting a thread for that. I'm going to do 3 separate threads, one for each shawl. You are more than welcome to enter all of them, or just the ones that interest you. I'm going to leave these drawings open until I record in 2 times. So it won't be the next time I record, but it'll be the time after that, which isn't quite 2 weeks. It's a little more than 2 weeks, but I just want to give people enough time to enter that if they want to, since there's so many of them. Plus it'll break it up and I won't be doing 5 million drawings next time. So anyway, but thank you again to all 3 of those designers for sharing those patterns, both with me and with my viewers. So I appreciate that so much. One other announcement that I have, and this isn't directly knitting related, but if you know Denise from the Knitting Den, she wrote to me and she mentioned that she's starting a 21-day fitness challenge, which she does these, I guess she's done them in the past, and I know I've seen different stuff about those from her on Facebook and everything. And she said she's going to be starting another one soon and asked if I was interested in joining. I declined just because I'm really bad at those kind of fitness challenges. I don't know what it is about me. I don't tend to find them motivational. They sometimes have like the opposite effect for me and I just like, eh. But it sounds like a really cool idea. And if you're somebody who does like that kind of motivation, like being in, you know, kind of an accountability sort of thing and everything, I would recommend that to you. So I told her that I would go ahead and announce it on here. I'm not 100% sure where you sign up, so I'm going to say the best thing to do is if you're interested in more details about that, PM Denise on Ravelry. She's Knitting Den, KNITTINGDEN, all one word, on Ravelry. Also the name of her podcast, and ask her about it and she can give you all the scoop. But it sounded like a really cool thing, even if it's not quite up my alley. I wanted to at least let you guys know about that. Okay, lastly, and well, actually, you know what? I'm going to do this slightly opposite because I want to talk about Highlands on the Fly and my trip, but I know maybe not everybody wants to hear about that. So let me do the rest of the content, the 10% and the shop news, and then I will talk about Highlands on the Fly. The only 10% that I'm really going to talk about, since this is going to be long, I can tell you right now, is my reading. I told you I was listening to You're Never Weird on the Internet Almost by Felicia Day. I finished that. That was really good. I enjoyed that. I finally finished Dear Sugar. The Dear Sugar book is called Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. I'd been listening to that off and on for quite a while, but I finally got to the end of it, and it was really, really good. It's one of those books that I wish I had the hard copy of, and I may end up buying it eventually, just because there was some things in there that I'd like to be able to highlight. I'm one of those people. I'm a highlighter and an underliner while I read books, even novels sometimes. If there's, you know, parts that really strike me in some way, I'd like to be able to see them again and refer to them. So anyway, really enjoyed that book. I have actually, I told you I finished listening to Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. Not only did I listen to it, I re-listened to it on my way up to Maine, and then I started re-listening to it yet again. I love that book. I can't even describe specifically what it is about it. I think it's a combination of her very honest, not tales, but her honest account of her own action. I don't even know how. I want to say her own struggles, but they're struggles, I'm sure, but she's dealt with them seemingly so well, with mental illness issues, anxiety and depression and other issues. And I love her perspective. It's just been really good, and I like what I'm hearing. And I actually did order that book, the hard copy of that book, because I want to have that to be able to refer to and look at. I don't know. I'm probably doing a really horrible job of explaining why I like this book so much, but I would definitely say give it a listen. It's not, you know, a humorous book about mental illness is like, seems like an oxymoron, but it's not. She does such a good job of being honest and straightforward and, you know, about her experience, but at the same time with her unique wit and humor that she has in her other writing as well. So again, really love that book. I am not listening to any new audiobooks quite yet, although I've got a few to choose from, but I did start reading this morning this book, an actual paper book, go figure. How to Catch a Frog and Other Stories of Family, Love, Dysfunction, Survival, and Do-It-Yourself by Heather Ross. I think this was one, I do believe, I saw somebody mention this on Instagram a while back, and it just caught my attention, and I thought, that sounds really cool. And I looked it up, and I think there may be an audio version of this too, but there's artwork in it, and I kind of wanted to be able to see the pictures. So I ordered the hardback book, and I started reading it this morning, and I love it. I'm in a very reflective reading and writing mode right now. I've been journaling a lot again, and reading a lot of reflective, kind of deepish reflective stuff. I think that's maybe another reason why the Furiously Happy book has really been appealing to me right now, and why I enjoyed Tiny Beautiful Things so much. It's just one of those phases of life for me right now, and it's been good. So I'm really looking forward to this. I haven't even gotten through the whole first chapter, so I can't really tell you a whole lot about it. But I've already started underlining and and things. I'm not going to read you any of it right now, but suffice it to say, cool book. Check it out if you think that might be something you'd be interested in. Okay, the only shop news I have for you is the fact that I'm going to be doing a Show Orphans update tomorrow, which is the 23rd, Friday the 23rd of October. That will be at 2 p.m. Eastern. Every time I do a show, inevitably I end up with things that there's only one left of, and so I just do those in their own update, because even though I have another show coming up next month, I'm not going to hang on to singles for that purpose. So those, lots of really cool stuff. I didn't bring the bin in. It's huge and it's too much to really just show you. I will say the shop is reopened. I shut it down while I was away just because I was going to be gone so long and I wouldn't have been able to ship anything. The shop has been reopened with some limited stock in it of things that were already in it. But I will be uploading the new items that will be in the update. That's what I'm going to be doing the rest of today. And again, the update will be 2 p.m. I know there's a lot of self-striping sock. There's probably a little bit of other self-striping. There's some gradients. There's some fiber. There's some tonal variegated. Yeah, a little bit of everything. So, but only one of each. So you can look for that tomorrow. Okay, let's talk about Highlands on the Fly now, because this was such a fantastic trip. I'm going to start at the beginning, and I'm going to try not to like talk about this for hours because because we're already at 40 minutes. Basically, I left last Wednesday, the 14th. I left to do the first half of the drive. I did the drive in 2 parts going up. Wednesday was supposed to be my big drive day, and I went as far as southeastern Massachusetts, and I got to spend the night with my friend Amelia, who is Emil Carve 1962 on Ravelry and on Instagram. And she was kind enough to offer to let me stay at her house. And it was so much fun getting to meet her finally. We've, corresponded for a long time through, texting and on Ravelry and everything. But I finally got to meet her. And she's such a delightful person, just very, very sweet. Got to meet her hubby. And we hung out. She taught me how to Portuguese knit. Which she said I caught on really fast. I still don't feel totally adept at it, but it's neat to learn a new process. And to watch her do it, she does it super fast. So that was really cool. But anyway, it was just really, really nice getting to spend time with her. And it was a great start to my trip. And it was funny because that day's drive, even though it was like 10.5 hours, it felt like it went really fast. Now my second day's drive, where I was going from I was about an hour south of Boston, I think. Going from there up to Millinocket in Maine, northern Maine, that was supposed to be about a 5.5 hour drive. It felt like it took 3 days. Not because it was so desolate, which, the farther north you get, there's not as many places, I mean, the scenery is beautiful, but it wasn't even that. It was just the fact that I did not seem to be able to drive without stopping at least once an hour for whatever reason. The only stop I'd really planned in, other than having to stop for gas and coffee and the bathroom because you stop for coffee, is I wanted to stop at LL Bean. And I did, and I thought, oh, an hour will be plenty of time. I had no idea. No idea. Oh my gosh, I never got out of the women's department, the Mrs. department clothing, and I did buy some clothes, which was fortuitous because I ended up wearing almost all of them while I was up at the retreat. I mean, I packed okay, but the warmer clothes definitely came in handy. So anyway, I made that stop, and then I finally got up there. I got up to the retreat probably about 5:30, I think, and it was great because I got there. The retreat center was beautiful. It was right on Lake Millinocket. You looked straight across, and there was Mount Katahdin in all its glory. I now understand Heather's passion and exuberance over Mount Katahdin. Heather from Fiberista Files, who was one of the hosts of this retreat. She always talks about it, and I just, I thought, okay, cool, it's a mountain. Mountains are nice, but now seeing it, it was incredible. And every time I looked at it the whole entire weekend, it looked different. Like, it's constantly changing, and it's just gorgeous. I've got tons of pictures. I took tons of pictures, like on my actual camera, not just my phone. I don't have I'm not ready to share them. I will at some point. I need to do, processing and everything with them. But it was just such a pretty area. So anyway, the area was great. I got there, and the first person I got to meet was Sarah from Fiber Trek, she was the one who coordinated a lot of the retreat. And I've just been fascinated by Sarah and her passion for wool and its history and all that she talks about in her podcast for so long. I was thrilled to finally get to meet Sarah. And she was delightful. Yeah, it was a happy place. It was really, really a happy place. And the cabins that we stayed in were like these deluxe accommodations. Quite honestly, I've never seen cabins like this. I was in a cabin with one other person. This cabin slept 10. I mean, it was huge. She took the upstairs, I took the downstairs. It was great. Anyway, let's see. So Thursday was kind of like the dinner was the first official thing, and the food there was fabulous. The staff at the retreat center, really just fabulous food. Everything was yummy the whole entire weekend. It's a wonder I didn't gain 10 pounds, quite honestly. But we had dinner first night, and that was kind of the opening for the retreat and everything. Oh, I have to find, okay, now I need to dig into my bin, because I've got a bin. Yes, I came home with a bin of things that came home with me. So let's see if I can find, where's the first part? There it is. We got our goodie bags. So these were the goodie bags. And Paul, Heather's husband, made the goodie bags. Isn't that awesome? So this is the one I got. There was 2 different versions of this fabric, a dark version and a light version. I got the dark one. It's just got a nice light inside. And then it had a skein of Heather's yarn. And it's called First Fall on her sugar maple sock. And I just love these colors. Aren't they incredible? So it was a perfect first acquisition for this trip, let me tell you. So did that. We all kind of went around and introduced ourselves. I don't know how many people were there. I want to say between 30 and 40. I don't remember. I don't know that I ever heard what the actual count was for how many people attended. But it was probably somewhere around 30 or 40. So got to do everybody introduce themselves, and that was a lot of fun. And then we were just sort of on our own and hung out and knit, and there was a bar right there at the lodge, so you could hang out and drink if you wanted to. I was kind of tired by that point, though, and I didn't hang out too long, and I went back and went to sleep. So then Friday was the workshop day. There were, I think, 4 different workshops going on. Heather did a dyeing workshop that was more than just the morning. I think that was morning and afternoon. And then there was a short little workshop on buying fleece, like what to know when you're buying a fleece by Michelle from Bybrook Farm. I did not go to that one. The ones I went to in the morning, I went to the one that Sarah did on, I don't remember what the actual name of it was, but it was basically about recognizing characteristics of different types of fiber. And different ways to process. And she demonstrated using hand combs, like Viking combs, which, you know, I knew a lot of what she was talking about, and I'd seen those demonstrations before. I have combs. They're sitting up there. So I've used them before, but it's always really interesting to me to see other people's technique, because everybody differs just a little bit. So that was really a fun workshop to go to. And then after lunch, the other workshop I went to was with Janie Estelle from Starcraft Fiber. Now I can talk, I really can. She was doing, it was 2 parts. It was a hike and then coming back and talking and playing kind of with color. The hike was meant to be focused on finding color inspiration in nature. She was coming at it more from like a design standpoint, like color work design. I tend to look at things more through the eyes of coming up with colorways for my dyeing, not so much design. But she was saying about how you can really come up with colors and shapes from nature. And see, I never really think about the shape part. I think more from a texture perspective, because of my, you know, I work mostly with color on yarn, not color in knitting. You know, that's not my design focus, even when I do design. But I thought that was a really interesting perspective. And the hike was gorgeous. Again, took billions of pictures. And it was so much fun on the way back from this hike. You know, some of us were sort of lingering towards the back because we were taking a lot more pictures. And Janie was one of the ones who was sort of lingering behind. So I got to walk with her, and I was talking to her. She was really an interesting woman. I was so glad I had the chance to get to know her a little bit. And she told me, you know, I'd asked her, you know, how did she get involved in having a mill? You know, how did she get involved with the processing Nash Island sheep? And I didn't realize that, I mean, I knew she was giving a talk that evening. I didn't realize that that was actually the stuff she was going to be talking about. So I kind of got a preview without the PowerPoint presentation. But it was really fun just getting to talk to her. She was really, really nice. Had some things in common. So that was fun. She's honestly, you know, I don't know how well known she is in general fiber circles, but for the things that I'm really interested in, she's kind of one of those rock star kind of people that I was really glad to have gotten to meet. So that was fun. And then let's see what else. There was dinner, and before dinner, actually, both Sarah and Janie just did talks in general to everybody. Sarah talked about the conservation breeds that she used in her hap shawl that she knit this year. So that was really cool. And then Janie, again, she talked about, you know, the Starcraft fiber mill and how she got involved with the Nash Island sheep and the history of the Nash Island sheep, and the pictures that she had to show were just fabulous. And she was talking about what all it takes to, you know, take care of those sheep, because they're out on these islands by themselves. Nobody lives there with them 24/7 or anything. So it was very, very cool. I enjoyed that. And then we had dinner, more food and dessert. And then we got to just hang out for the rest of the evening there. Saturday I woke up and it had snowed, or it was snowing, and you could see on the mountain there was definitely snow. We could see it coming in the day before, but there was definitely snow on the ground and coming down, and it was so cool, the juxtaposition between all of the autumnal colored leaves, because the color was peak while we were up there. Beautiful. So you had all these brightly colored yellow and orange and red leaves, and then you had snow also. So that was really neat. And that was the market day as well. So pretty much right after breakfast, started setting up for the booth, you know, setting up my booth. There was me, there was Janny was selling her yarn from the Nash Island sheep. Bybrook Farm was there. Okay, here, let me show you what I got. I'll just go through them. Oh, and then Heather from Highland Handmaids. Let me tell you the rest of the vendors. Heather from Highland Handmaids. Katie from Knitting on the Fly. Her mom does the trinkets, the little shawl clasps. She had a table there with those. And then, I can't remember. Is it in here? Let me find it. Let me see if I can find the name, because I kept forgetting the name of this the whole time I was up there. Shipyard Point Glassworks by Beverly. She was there with a lot of glass stuff, like stitch markers and zipper pulls, things like that. So anyway, I think that was everybody. There weren't that many vendors. There was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. So and Jody from One Lupin, she was there as well. She was actually right next to me, so I got to spend time and talk to her too, which she was lovely. Okay, so of course I didn't just vend. Vending was fabulous. It was a wonderful show. There may not have been a huge attendance at this particular retreat compared to some, but everybody likes to buy yarn, and they did. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody who came to my booth and who purchased things. I appreciate your I appreciate that so much. That was just wonderful. And your enthusiasm, and you know, it was great. It makes it worth it. It really does. That's why I like doing shows, because I get to interact with people one-on-one who are like really excited about stuff. So anyway, my shopping, I did buy some Nash Island wool from Starcroft. She had these great sets that she had mitten samples set up with the sets, and there was, I think, 4 different color combinations. The mittens themselves only take, I believe, 5 colors, but there's 6 in each set, so you can kind of customize it and do your own thing. I chose this color set just because it's a little bit outside of what my normal color range is that I tend to gravitate towards. But this is called, the yarn is called Tide Pool, and the color collection is called Rockweed. And it's 100% wild Maine Island wool. The Nash Island sheep are not one specific breed. It's kind of like Falkland. Falkland refers to the location of the sheep as opposed to the specific breed. So that's sort of the same thing with Nash Island. There's a couple different breeds involved, and I wish I could remember specifically. I know Romney is represented. I can't remember what the other ones are. Maybe Coopworth. Yeah, anyway. It's a DK weight yarn. It's definitely got a rustic feel to it, but I think it'll be lovely. I have no idea what I'm going to make. I don't know if I'll do mittens or if I'll do something else, but it's beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. So that was one of my purchases. And then from One Lupin, or Lupine, I got fiber. Let me see if I can get, there we go. One Lupine, Maine Yarn and Fiber Supply. She actually has a shop in Bangor, which I was going to stop at on my way back down, except I got Bangor confused with Bar Harbor, and I was already in Bar Harbor before I realized I should have stopped in Bangor. Although I drove through Bangor on Sunday, so I probably wouldn't have been able to stop anyway. Anyhow, this is just some BFL silk, and the colors, like I saw this hanging in her booth like pretty much the entire day, and I finally went over in the afternoon. I'm like, I need this. It just keeps looking at me and calling to me, and so I need to have it. I just love that there's so much of the light color, and then you've got those great pops of color. And I know when I spin it up, it's gonna lose those pops, you know, probably. I mean, unless I spin it directly off of the braid instead of splitting it. I don't know. I don't want to get it muddied up. I'd love to be able to maintain those bright pops of color as much as I can. But with so much light colored wool in there too, I'm just not sure how possible that will be. I don't know. But it's gorgeous. So I got that. And then from Bybrook Farm, she had, I believe she had yarn, but she also had bats. And then she just had these well, they were in baskets. I have them in bags now, of washed Romney wool. The basically locks with veg matter, obviously. They're washed, but they have not been processed in any way. Look at the fun crimp on these babies. Look at these. Oh my gosh. Is this not the most lovely? I love those crimpy curls. Can you, I wish it would, there, that's better. So anyway, she had 4 different colors. So I bought 2 ounces of each of these 4 colors. So this one is from Maxine. She gives you a little tag with telling you who the sheep was who donated their fiber for this. So that's Maxine. And then the next lighter one is Mithiel, which is a lighter brown, kind of a caramely color. And then the next one goes into kind of a light caramel gray color, and this is from Persia. Not from the location Persia, the sheep's name was Persia. And then lastly was this real light color called Mary, is the sheep. So I just think it's really interesting that the Romney, you know, the sheep have such a diversity of color. So I'm really tempted to play with these for the spin along. I don't know. And I'm not going to process them a great deal. I'm mostly going to spin them from the lock. I have a flip carder to open those locks up. I mean, you can even just open them up like that with your fingers, honestly, and then just spin them straight from the lock. And this would be great for spinning woolen. I just love it. It makes me happy. So there was that. And then from Shipwreck, I did get 2 little zipper pulls. I'm going to give one to Emma, and then one I'm going to keep. Haven't decided which will be which yet. And then somewhere in here, there they are, I also got buttons. Because I love buttons. You guys know that. So these are the buttons that I picked up there from her. And again, we're not going to... There we go. I just thought those were so interesting. So they're glass. It says red frit. I'm not sure what that means, but anyway, just 2 really cute little buttons. So I think that was everything I got at the oh no, Heather and I traded. That's one of the fun things. I think actually Janny and I traded too. But anyway, I got this. This is Targhee. That Heather had in these great rainbow braids. And I haven't taken this apart yet, but I believe these are sort of separate segments. And I think it's 6 ounces, if I remember correctly. I know it's more than 4 ounces, but obviously I won't be spinning this for the spin along, but it's super pretty and bright and beautiful, and I can't wait to do something with this, and I just don't know what it's going to be yet. So we'll see. Stay tuned. But it's so squishy. And so nice. Oh. Anyway, that was everything I got at the market. I did get one other thing, but I'll show you that in a minute. So that was Saturday. And then Saturday night was pretty much the closing, you know, after dinner. They did drop door prizes and things like that. I did not win anything, but that was fine. And that was the wine social night, which I don't really drink wine, but it was funny. I had wine, 2 glasses the night before, which... because we were in a different location, they couldn't like actually take my payment there. So long story short, my wine ended up still counting towards the wine social, even though I didn't drink wine at the wine social. I don't know why I bothered to tell you that, because that's totally ridiculous, and you probably don't care. But anyway, it was fun. And it was a tapas night, so there was all kinds of really good food. Oh my gosh, the food was incredible. I enjoy good food. Who doesn't, right? Anyway, and then that was it. And then Sunday morning, it was basically breakfast, and everybody started going their own ways. And I was originally planning, I planned to spend an extra day. And my original plan was to stay up in that area. I had taken my tent and a sleeping bag, and I was going to camp, and I was going to do some hiking in Baxter State Park on some of the trails on Katahdin. Okay, so on Friday night, at that dinner, Sarah's husband, Rob, who is a ranger in Baxter, he was there, and she said, oh, you need to talk to Rob. He can tell you the best route to take for the amount of time you'll have. He'll have ideas. And he did. He mapped out this nice little 5-hour trek for me. Which was great. And I had maps and everything that I kind of looked at after I got back to my room, and I thought, okay, I could probably do that. And it doesn't look too dangerous. I should not die, as long as I don't meet an angry moose or something. Well, first thing Saturday morning, this is when the snow had hit, up on the mountain especially. First thing Saturday morning, I get in there to the lodge and I see Sarah, and the first thing she says to me is, Rob said you really need to rethink that hike. They didn't want to be responsible for losing me, I guess. And so, long story short, I did not get to hike in Baxter on the mountain, and I was sort of sad, but in retrospect, it was probably good because I'd never been there before, and hiking alone in an area that you don't know is probably not the best thing. The mountains around here, I hike a lot, and I don't feel any problem with that. But yeah, it's probably best to do that some other time when I can be with somebody else. And I'm sure I'll get back up there to do that someday. But anyway, my plan B was just to start heading south, and I had no specific plan of where I wanted to go. Paul, Heather's husband, gave me a route to drive that was not interstate. It was a little closer to the coast too, so I got to see some more beautiful scenery. On a whim, I stopped at Katahdin Ironworks, which is a historic site from, it was actually Katahdin Ironworks was a city, I guess, at one point, its own little city where they, there was like blast furnaces and stuff where they did ironworks back in the 1800s. And so there's still a couple of structures left from that. And there was just gorgeous views of the mountain from there too. So I pulled over and I wandered around there for well over an hour, and just took a bazillion pictures. It was such a beautiful day. So that was great. Hardly anybody around. And then I got back in the car and drove, and my goal at that point was to get down to Bar Harbor and to go to Acadia, because I figured I'd have some time that I could drive through Acadia that evening and then spend more time the next morning doing more of it. Well, my timing was perfect because I got there just in time to get my park pass, because you have to have a pass to drive through the park. The visitor center was going to close in like 10 minutes, and I got there just in time. So I got my pass, and I stopped and I asked one of the rangers in that center, I said, here's the amount of time I have to work with. I've got the rest of today, and then I've got tomorrow morning. What would you suggest I do? And she said, well, you're here at the perfect time tonight. Drive up Cadillac Mountain and you can watch the sunset from up there. I'm like, awesome. That sounds perfect. Watching a sunset from a mountaintop. Awesome. And then she said, you can do the loop road tomorrow because that takes like an hour and a half without stops, and if you're going to stop and take pictures and look at stuff, you're going to want more time. So that was my plan. So that is what I did. I went up to the top of Cadillac Mountain, and I got to watch the sunset. And I was taking pictures, and I was standing outside in the frigid, freezing cold wind. My hands were numb within like 2 minutes. And so I was taking pictures, and then I'd hop back in my car and get warm. And then I'd wait about 10 minutes and get out, take more pictures because the sun had gotten lower. Got back in my car, and pretty much everybody up there was doing that. I was not the only one. But, it's not like necessarily the sunset was any more brilliant because it was up there, but, how often do you get to say, hey, I watched the sunset from Cadillac Mountain? You don't. At least I don't. I guess if you live there, you can. But anyway, so that was a cool experience. And then at that point, I had to find someplace to spend the night because I had no plans. So I basically just sort of drove through Bar Harbor and looked at B&Bs that had vacancy signs, and I found one, and they were happy to accommodate me, and I even got a price break because it was such a last minute thing and they had rooms that they needed to fill that night. So that was pretty awesome. What was the name of it? The Thornhedge Inn, I think. So I like B&Bs. I don't stay in them very often, but they're always fun because they've always got their own, their own character and everything. So it was perfect for a one night stay. And so then I got up the next morning and I went to breakfast at the B&B. I like going to the breakfast at B&Bs because, they usually have pretty nice food and everything. What I'm not crazy about is the forced socialization with the other B&B patrons. I'm not really good at that. Like small talk with random strangers isn't my strong suit, especially when I have not had coffee yet. Yeah, it was fine though. Got through it. I pretended to be a normal human being who could converse with strangers at will, and I had coffee. And so then I went back to the park and I drove around, and it was really pretty. It was a beautiful day. And you drive and it's like, oh, I'm going to stop here. And then you drive and like 20 feet down the road, oh, I'm going to stop here. It's like, you can't just drive. You keep stopping and taking pictures. And then I finally got to the place where Sand Beach is. And it's a beach, obviously, but it's kind of in this little cove. And so there's this big rock wall on the one side, like cliffs. And then the other side there's cliffs over there too, but it's more wooded and hilly and everything. And so I was taking pictures there, and there was lots of big rocks on the beach. That was pretty neat. It was a lot of people though. I was kind of feeling claustrophobic because there were quite a few tourists there. But that was okay. So I did that. I hung out there for a little while, and then I got back in the car, and then the next stop down was actually a place where you could park, and there were pathways to get down onto those cliffs that had been there, those big rocks. I was in my glory. I love climbing on rocks and everything. So I had my camera and I had my hiking shoes on, so I was okay. And I probably spent, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour just climbing over all these rocks, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I did not drop my camera into the crashing waves and water below. I did not drop myself, which was good because it was kind of slippery in spots. It was wet, and there's that algae that grows on rocks that makes them a little precarious. I managed to survive all that. It was gorgeous. And at one point, I just sat down. I just sat there and looked at the water and looked at the rocks and breathed the fresh air. It was so relaxing. It was wonderful. Had a great time. And then I finally got back in my car. And at that point, I was starting to get hungry and tired. And I was really getting actually beautiful scenery out, which I know sounds funny, but it's like I already had hundreds of pictures on my camera. And I know myself well enough to know that I have a hard time just looking at those kind of things without taking pictures of them because I want to be able to remember them. And I thought, I just need to get out of this park. So I pretty much just drove through the rest of it. I mean, I kind of pulled over and looked at things from my car, but I didn't spend significant time. But I was in the park probably a good 3 or 4 hours, all told. Probably 3 hours. And then, I went back into Bar Harbor. I stopped in a couple of little shops. Well, I stopped in one shop and just bought, I bought this mug for me, and I bought stuff for Christopher and Emma, just little stuff. Then I went to lunch. I asked them there. That's the best thing to do. And you're someplace you don't know, ask a local where the best place that they would recommend for lunch, for whatever kind of food. And I'm like, is there a good place for lunch, for soup, sandwiches, things like that? They're like, yep. I think it was the Dog and Pony Tavern or something. So I walked up there and had a fabulous lunch of a cup of lobster bisque. And, I had lobster roll twice while I was away, by the way. I don't usually like lobster, but when you're up there, you have to have it. Lobster bisque, which was fabulous, and poutine. If you've never had poutine, you need to, if you don't mind, fatty foods that aren't so good for you, because it's basically French fries with like brown beef gravy and cheese curds. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, these did not have authentic cheese curds. It was just kind of diced up chunks of mozzarella that were melted, but it was fine. It served the purpose, and it was quite yummy. So I did that, and then I stopped at the shop that I had parked outside of. It was this little place called Gussie and Spruce. I think that was the name of it. It was either Spruce and Gussie or Gussie and Spruce. Cute little gift shop that carried all kinds of quirky stuff, really neat things. I bought some gifts, thinking ahead for like Christmas and stuff. I bought myself a Christmas tree ornament, which I don't have in here to show you. But they had, it was one of those places that carries like odd stuff, like greeting cards that you don't usually see. Oh, yeah, it's called Spruce and Gussie. Sorry. Adornments for self and space. I bought a bunch of cards that I don't know what I'll do with them. Some of them I may just frame because I like doing that. But let me, okay. So like this one says, please let me be the first to punch the next person who tells you everything happens for a reason. I'm sorry you're going through this. Like these are the greeting cards that Hallmark doesn't write. Okay, you need these sometimes. Another one is, well, this just sucks. I wish I had a better way to say it, but my brain totally feels stuck right now. But I just want you to know that even though I might not always have exactly the right words, you will always have me. I'm not going anywhere. So I hope you're cool with that because I love you. I mean, you know you're going to know somebody at some point in life who's going to need this card. Then there's this one. Oh, you're an artist. That one I'm probably just going to frame. My modus operandi is dial up the awesome and break the knob off. Yeah. At least you're not on this ship. This one I'm sending to my daughter because she'll totally get my weird, wacky sense of humor with it. She knew kids loved surprises, and so she filled the piñata with real animal entrails. I just love it. You're useful and delicious. I'm not exactly sure what I'll do with that one, but it was just too cute to not have. The strong would survive the winter. The weak would, of course, be eaten. I'm sorry. So these were Zyken Press. I don't know if they were all, and these were, some of them were Emily McDowell's studio. So just weird, quirky cards that, oh, and the Mincing Mockingbird was the ones with the birds. Yeah, so anyway, just fun stuff. So I got, oh, I'm losing them in my desk. I got those, and then they also, actually the thing that caught my eye when I pulled up, the one window had some displays, and I didn't even remember to look at it when I was in there, of cards that had yarn on them. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I realized they actually had yarn in there. It's not a yarn shop, but they did carry some Maine-based yarns, and ironically, they had Nash Island in there. But then they had this as well, which I'd never heard of, which is Good Karma Farm, which is based in Belfast, Maine, which I did actually drive through Belfast on my way home. But I just picked up a skein because I thought it was really cool and pretty, and it was a Maine yarn, and I figured when in Maine. It's called Speckled Trout. I don't know what the fiber, oh, it's 60% wool, 40% alpaca. Ooh, I didn't realize it had alpaca in it. I don't usually buy alpaca, but this doesn't feel bad. Like, it would make a really nice cowl or a hat or squishy mittens or something. I think I could probably do the alpaca in this. But anyway, awesome colors. So I bought that. And I bought a few other just little things, which I'm not showing you. But anyway, then I got on the road. But at that point, it was 1:30. Okay, so that was 1:30 on Monday. My original plan was to drive partway home Monday, drive the rest of the way home Tuesday, get home by Tuesday evening. At that point, however, I was ready to just be home. And I had nothing else that I was really planning to stop and do. It was just going to be a matter of driving, staying somewhere for the night, and driving the rest of the way home. But my brain decided, you know what? That's stupid to spend money to stay someplace overnight for no reason other than to just drive again. So let's just drive the whole way home Monday. Okay. So that is what I did. I got in my car at 1:30 in the afternoon, and I arrived home at 6:30 in the morning on Tuesday, having driven 17 hours. Now, that is not a 17-hour trip. It was 17 hours for me because I took the most ridiculous route out of Bar Harbor ever. I decided, oh, I'll take the coastal road and drive down through all those cute little towns. I got as far as Belfast before I realized, you're stupid, Lisa, don't do this. And so then I cut across to Augusta, got on the interstate, and got moving. But that took like an hour and a half just to get to Belfast, honestly. And then over to the interstate, probably longer than that. I don't even remember. It's all a blur at this point. And then I couldn't get out of Maine. Like, I wanted to be in Maine so badly, and then when I was trying to finally leave Maine, it was like I was in a Maine vortex, and I kept driving and driving and driving and driving and driving, and I couldn't get across the border because I couldn't get out of Maine. finally hit New Hampshire. I'm like, yes. And then you're in New Hampshire for like the blink of an eye, and then you're suddenly in Massachusetts again, which was fine. But at least I had broken out of that boundary that I couldn't seem to get through. So I got to Massachusetts, and then I would say I was really wide awake. I was good. I figured, if I need to stop, I'll just stop. I'll take a nap here and there, but I was really, really good. And then I spent about 3 hours on the phone talking to a friend, which time flies when you're talking on the phone. I know you're not supposed to talk on the phone while you're driving. Shh, just stop. But anyway, did that. So by the time I got off the phone, it was like 11 o'clock. And immediately I'm like, I'm tired. So then that's when the iPod goes on really loud, and I start singing ridiculously loud to drown out the iPod that's already up loud. I got as far as Wilkes-Barre, PA. I figured once I crossed into Pennsylvania, it would be so much easier, because even though Pennsylvania is huge and I had to pretty much go all across the top half, then down, and then all across the bottom half, it was still Pennsylvania, and that's where I live. So it feels like I'm closer to home, right? I got to Wilkes-Barre probably about 1:30 in the morning, or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, I'm tired and I need to sleep. So I pulled over at a Sheetz, a gas station. They're fairly well lit and safe and everything, so I didn't feel bad about doing that. And I did stop, and I left the car on and cracked the windows because it was cold and I needed the heat. But the thing is, my car was packed full of stuff, and I couldn't recline my seat, so I was basically sleeping in the driver's seat, wedged between the door and the steering wheel and the seat, and then I was trying to put my head down on the console with my jacket and a shawl kind of piled up as a pillow, and my neck really, really hurts today, and I think that's why. That was not optimal sleeping arrangements whatsoever. But anyway, I did manage to get about, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes of rest. I won't say it was sleep, but it was at least rest that rejuvenated me enough that I then filled up with gas. I went in, I got some food, because I hadn't really eaten anything since breakfast other than 2 donuts and my lunch. I had the donuts after lunch. But I was hungry. I don't know what it is about being in the car forever that makes you really, really hungry. So anyway, and got coffee, and then continued on, and then a couple of hours later, I don't even know where I was. I was somewhere along I-80 in Pennsylvania, and I just pulled over to rest stop. I'm like, I just need to rest for a little while. So I got another half hour worth of rest. And then the funniest thing, a little later on, I had to stop at a bathroom for a bathroom break. So, stopping at rest areas in these remote area locations is odd in the middle of the night anyway. But that was probably about 3:30 in the morning at this point. And I pulled into this one rest area, and there were a couple other cars, and you could see people sleeping, So I walked into the ladies' room and went in the stall and, doing my thing. And I could hear these other 2 women talking, and they were down a little ways. Actually, no, the one was in the stall right next to me, and then I guess the next one was in the one next, down a little further. Well, they're talking to one another, so clearly they know each other, but they're having this conversation about actually pretty personal issues, and so I'm like, okay. I'm trying to just discreetly do my thing and leave. And okay, this may be too much information. I'm sorry if you find this offensive, but the one woman then all of a sudden lets out, she passes gas loudly and then goes on to comment about it. She goes, boy, that was a loud fart. And the friend that she was talking to is like, somebody else did come in the bathroom, right? She's like, did they? And they're like, well, yeah, I think so. So there's somebody else in here. So they're talking to them with each other about the fact that I'm in there. It was the weirdest thing. And then so finally, the one who let out the noise, she goes, hi. And I just started laughing. I was not going to start engaging in conversation with these 2 people in these other stalls in the middle of the night. I just wasn't. I'm like, I laughed, and they started laughing, and I just finished, and I washed my hands, and I left, and I was done. And I was out of the parking lot before they ever came out of the bathroom. It was so weird. But anyway, I finally made it home. I pulled in my driveway, I unlocked the door, came in my bedroom, and I just flopped into my bed. I didn't even get undressed, and I slept probably for 4 or 5 hours, and it felt so good. So I was a little fuzzy on Tuesday, but you know what? It was actually really good because it gave me a re-entry day. Because otherwise, yesterday would have been my first day home, and I had Bonnie coming over to do yarn, which is fine. It's not intrusive in any way, but it's nice to have just had a day home by myself, before I had to actually get back in thinking and working mode. So in that way, I'm really glad I did that crazy 17-hour trip all at one time. I will not be doing another one of those ever, or at least not for a long time. It's kind of like childbirth. Once I forget the pain of this one, then maybe I'll be tempted to do it again. But yeah, driving by yourself long distances is just crazy sometimes. So anyway, but that was my trip, and I think that's almost everything. I'm sure I'm forgetting to tell you something, but I'll stop now because this is super, super long. And anyway, it was a fun time. I highly recommend the Highlands on the Fly retreat. I've been to a lot of knitting retreats, and I have to say that in general, for all of the specific reasons, the location, the fact that it was a fairly small retreat, the location, the people. I mean, the thing was, there was a lot of people there who not necessarily active on Ravelry, and they don't necessarily watch podcasts, but they were there because they were local Mainers. And by local, I mean they were from the state of Maine, not necessarily right there, who, they don't get that many opportunities to do that kind of stuff. So they were all about being there. And it was so much fun talking to them and getting to know people that had no idea who I was, which was fine with me. And, just getting to know them and what they do. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. And a lot of them had experience hiking Mount Katahdin too. So learning about that and hearing their experiences was so cool. So anyway, I would just highly recommend it. It was one of the best retreats I have ever been to. And I know it was Rhinebeck weekend too, but I'll be honest with you, I'm really, really glad that I was up there and I did that retreat instead of going to Rhinebeck again, because two totally different experiences. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Rhinebeck. I've always enjoyed Rhinebeck when I went, but this year I was really, really glad to be at the retreat instead. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to stop talking now because I'm giving myself a headache. My sinuses are really stuffy too, which is probably also giving me a headache. But anyway, that's it. Again, the shop update for the orphans from the show will be on the 23rd, tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to start photographing stuff and putting stuff up in preview mode immediately here as soon as I start processing the podcast. So that's it. Till next time, don't forget to enter the drawings for the yarn or for the fiber and for the patterns. Yeah, I think that's everything. See you later. Bye.